Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Crypto Byte. And today is Friday, August 27th, and it's a big day for the crypto markets today, CJ. We got $2 billion worth of options expiring today, and really, depending on how the market closes today, I think could dictate kind of how the weekend price action behaves. So, setting us up for a big weekend, we'll talk about all that and more. But before we get into it, how are you doing today, CJ?
I'm doing great, and got that email reminder from LedgerX this morning about Bitcoin options expiries today. So that's going to be really interesting. Really enthusiastic to talk about Bitcoin today, as well as a variety of some other altcoins. I think we're going to touch on that concept of the cup and handle pattern being pretty ubiquitous among a lot of the altcoins today. But yeah, why don't we start it off?
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into it. Like you said, CJ, I think there's a lot to talk about when it comes to, the Bitcoin technicals today. So let's dive right into the charts and what are you seeing today?
Seeing some, not a whole lot different from yesterday, quite honestly. Chris Vincentini, the couch may make a return, but likely not for a while. Monty, you pointed this out in chat earlier this morning that Bitcoin is actually holding pretty steadily above this 200-day moving average. And I think that's pretty promising for the trend to find some support. We talked about like the bearish divergences and the lack of volume that we've seen with this rally. So while I did really like that bullish engulfing candle, say on the 25th, it just was not able to be followed up with bullish price action. And it's hard to trust a rally with low volume and a bearish divergence in a lot of the oscillators, not only just the RSI, but also the CMF and a few others. Nonetheless, I think there is some interesting things to consider going into the month of September. And what I want to allude to is a chart that I showed on the cocktail hour a couple of weeks back, right when we were at this point on August 4th. A lot of people at this particular point thought, we're forming just another bear market rally, and now we're going to go back and retest the lows. And, I didn't think we were going to do that. I thought we were going to pretty much play out very similar to the pattern that we have above here. And although these are two very different assets, this is the S&P 500 ETF in 2009 after the crash and selling climax of 2008, the overall reaccumulation phase throughout 2009, and then the subsequent rally up to new all-time highs in 2010 and 2011. So Bitcoin, although it's happened over a much shorter period of time, it's followed that Wyckoff accumulation phase after the selling climax pretty much to a T, because you have these instances where large volume players will test the supply and test the lows. For instance, here, and for instance here. And we see very similar instances reflected in Bitcoin. So this is what we had shown August 4th, and the updated version of that actually played out even more accurately. So when we look at what we've seen over the course of like August after following this correction, it's been incredibly similar to what we saw in that same equivalent period throughout 2009 in the S&P 500, kind of just rallying up into that markup phase. And now I believe what we're seeing is some profit taking after this markup phase. I mean, people are up roughly 50 to 100% if you were in the market around August and scaling in at any point in time here. So to see some profit taking is not completely out of the realm of possibility. It's actually quite normal. But in terms of seasonality, the month of September has not always been a completely bullish month for Bitcoin, even in bull markets like 2017 and 2013. Nevertheless, I don't think it's going to be catastrophic for price or anything of that sort. I've been pretty adamant about the 42 level, and I don't think we're going below that. I kind of just use the 42K level as a strong reference point for our downside risk. But I wouldn't be surprised if we had kind of a boring sideways grind to maybe the upper 50s or mid 50s throughout the month of September before forming, a larger snowballed momentum towards the winter, and then ultimately like when we truly complete stock to flow. So that's just kind of an interesting thing I'm seeing. But how about you? What's your outlook today?
Yeah, no, well, first I just want to say it's pretty staggering the similarities there in, not just those charting patterns, but also I think it's really interesting to, apply the on-chain metrics that we were seeing over the last couple months as well. And it really speaks to that, distribution and accumulation model that you were talking about. And I think, the fact that we're still seeing, long-term holders accumulate Bitcoin speaks to the fact that it is just profit taking, like you hinted at there, CJ. And I think the case you laid out there, a slow grind up in September, is something that's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. We talked just a few days ago about that seasonality of Bitcoin, and for the last 3 years, we've seen relatively poor performance for Bitcoin and the crypto market in general in the month of September. But that is typically followed by a subsequent rally in the months of October, November, and December, which I think is really what is going to be most important. So I'm in agreement with you. I think it could potentially be a slow grind up. But in terms of what we're seeing today, CJ, I think I'm just encouraged by the fact that we're holding this moving average. To me, that is indicative that the trend is still strong and that this is just profit taking. If we were to perhaps break through this 200 period SMA right here and head down to retest, the smooth moving average, which is still at a respectable level of around 44K, this to me would have meant that, perhaps there was some loss in conviction in the trend and it was a little bit more than just, profit taking after this nice run up here. But given the fact that we're seeing, a nice little bounce off this 200 period SMA, which is a very critical level for price action, to me is very encouraging. So I think we can hold this level, as long as we hold it for the rest of the day. I think it does set us up nicely for some good weekend price action here.
I'm surprised at the strength of ETH holding up here. It really hasn't backed off at all. Of course, it has sold off a little bit with Bitcoin, but if you actually look at the technicals, it still looks like a very large bull flag, whereas Bitcoin, each subsequent rally had a little bit less momentum than the previous one. So I think that's an interesting difference and something that speaks to the actual staking and lockup of a lot of these coins. And I think when the market, I won't say when, but I'll say if the market does recover and go back into a really bullish phase, then something strong like Ethereum, I think, is going to do very well. Also Serum, Luna, but I don't want to jump too hard into the doges of the day.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think there's a few factors at play here that are, kind of allowing ETH to outperform Bitcoin at the current point in this market cycle. One, you hinted at there that, deflationary element that came recently with the Ethereum Improvement Protocol, I think is very good for just the supply and demand mechanics of Ethereum itself. Also, Bill Parker points this out. The NFT craze is holding up ETH and stealing a lot of attention lately. I would agree. NFTs have been all the buzz of the last month or so. We talked about CryptoPunks and Visa buying their first CryptoPunk. That definitely is bolstering ETH's value. And the last thing I'll say is it's also interesting to note the difference in funding rates of various hedge funds we're seeing between Bitcoin and ETH. We're actually seeing ETH funds accelerating at a faster rate than Bitcoin funds at this current point in time, speaking to perhaps a greater institutional interest in ETH at the current point in time. And I think, that makes sense. We're seeing more and more funds set up, with exposure to ETH. And I think they were just waiting for that Ethereum Improvement Protocol to come out. And now we're seeing, more institutional interest in Ethereum than we've seen ever. So that could definitely be one of the factors contributing to this sort of divergence we're seeing in the price action of Bitcoin and ETH here. You're muted.
Thank you for that. It is Friday after all. But interesting to note, we actually just had a $400 jump in the price of Bitcoin due to the Fed chairman's comments recently. But interesting stuff. Speaking to your point on NFTs, though, I do want to show a fun NFT project that we were checking out yesterday. Although a little bit off topic, but this anyone who's a fan of racehorsing, please let us know in the chat, because I found this to be really interesting. It's like Crypto Kitties, but you can breed various horses, you can race them. Let's see them take off. Anyways, just a little interesting stuff there, being Zed run.
Yeah, it's cool.
Connects directly to your MetaMask, very, very easily funding Ethereum.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's different bloodlines for these horses, different traits with different rarities. Very cool application of NFTs into horse racing, which is an application I never thought I'd see, but it is very interesting. The elements of, breeding the horses, also the gambling element, obviously, of horse racing also makes it interesting, an interesting application for crypto. But yeah, CJ, how about we get into our doges of the day today? Because I think there could be some interesting price action this weekend.
I think Simba back on your bed there peaked up a little bit when you said Doge. But yeah, I'd be happy to jump in.
All right, let's get right into it.
So let's go over the cup and handle again, just very, very similar from yesterday. Textbook example. And although we like to look for a rounding bottom in many of these patterns, even this one, even the textbook example does have a little bit of a double bottom with that W pattern that we've seen in a lot of the alts. But specifically one, we talked about XLM, but Serum is another one that I think is extremely textbook. And I think that if we want to watch like a breakout level, there's really not a whole lot of support above this level because this was just such a mania phase and then a blow off top. So there wasn't a whole lot of support really formed. Maybe I would say the $9 level is the primary resistance that we would potentially face if a new breakout were to occur. And, these cup and handles, it's pretty textbook here. So I'll be looking for a continuation in Serum, and I think a lot of the alts with a similar formation to this will likely follow uptrends if we are to move higher, say into the 50s with Bitcoin here. So Serum is going to be mine. I'm looking at the assets that have already been very strong and resilient because I think once Bitcoin starts trending again, or if it starts trending again, they're going to be even stronger and provide some high beta.
Yeah, and I really like, the cup and handle pattern that you've been pointing out across the board here right now in particular, because when you extrapolate, the bottom of the cup to the top of the cup and then project that to where, price may go, it really does make sense because like you pointed out, there's very little resistance formed in a lot of these assets because of the volatility we saw earlier in the year. A lot of these assets climbed up on leverage and then, crashed down hard, not establishing any critical levels. So that extrapolated, levels from the cup and handle, I think is definitely a realistic target. And, based on what we're seeing technically, I think we really could see, some accelerated price action when those patterns complete. So I like it very much, CJ. But my Doge of the day today, I'm actually going to kind of switch it up a little bit. I typically try to pick Doges that, are somewhat, more oversold than the rest of the market, I guess, or maybe less overbought than the rest of the market is kind of how I look at it. But today I'm actually looking at the assets that are showing strength. And I want to talk about Cardano, two in particular, Cardano and Luna. Looking at Cardano here, I mean, first of all, this bullish engulfing candle at the top of the trend here is very encouraging in my opinion. But what's more encouraging is the fact that it's showing this strength in a relatively mild Bitcoin market. Like right now, Bitcoin isn't ripping to the upside. We're seeing some positive price action, sure, but clearly retail traders are looking for any excuse to speculate on assets like Cardano and like Luna. So even just, the fact that we're not trading down in Bitcoin today is allowing Cardano to continue this incredible run. And the fact that we're putting in this bullish engulfing candle here, for me, is very encouraging. And, this thing just completely went parabolic once it broke into new all-time highs. And I think that can continue to happen. So I'll be watching Cardano today closely to see how this bullish engulfing candle plays out. And like I mentioned as well, Luna is another one showing a very similar technical formation, also very strong volume as well. We're only a few hours into the day here, and this thing is already passing the amount of volume we saw over the last 2 days. So look for these assets with these bullish engulfing candles at the top of the trends, because I really do think that once they break above their previous all-time highs, they can continue to run because, they're garnering a lot of attention even in a relatively mild market. So those are my Doges of the day today, Luna and Cardano. But I would encourage you, if you enter those today, to keep a tight leash on those and don't let your stop loss get away from you. Keep it really tight because these are very volatile assets that could turn around if we did see some negative price action in Bitcoin. So those are my doges of the day today, Luna and ADA.
Before we get to the sponsorships and wrap the show up, I do want to talk about one new indicator that was added to the site of lookintobitcoin.com. I love the work that Philip Swift does over there and some of the things that they've created, pi cycle top, the reserve risk, a lot of those macro data models that we refer to on a daily basis, they create. They have something new called the advanced NVT signal. And the NVT signal was previous, but they had to tweak it a little bit because it was originally used as a way of picking cycle tops. But due to more coins being held off chain over time, the actual efficacy of the NVT signal originally declined. So they made some slight adjustments to kind of account for more of those coins being held off chain or kind of in second layers. So with that being said, I do kind of want to just jump over and take a look at the advanced NVT and where it is in our current cycle. So it may look a little bit complex on first glance, but it's basically just this blue line that you want to pay attention to. And then we have overbought and oversold levels, judging by the lower blue band and then the upper red bands here. And you can see during cycle tops, typically they occur when we hit the upper level of the NVT band. And, that's what we did in our initial run to about 40K. We're still able to keep going. But as you can see now, the volatility has gotten a lot higher in the market, and we are still very depressed in terms of like the longer term macro data model and, topping out in the overall market cycle. But anyways, just going to wrap that up. Wanted to share the advanced NVT because I always love looking to Bitcoin, and I think they do good work. But thank you to Voyager for our sponsor. Don't forget you can get 12% interest on DOT. And if you hold VGX, the Voyager token, 500 of them, you get a 1% boost in interest and overall. You can also get up to 10% interest on USDC stablecoin. So a great place to earn interest during a bear market, or even just compound your earnings in a bull market. So with that being said, I'll pass it to Monty to close the show.
Yes, thank you very much, CJ. And to that note, if you sign up for Voyager, use code REBEL25, you'll get $25 free in Bitcoin as CJ puts in the earplugs to deal with the construction. CJ, I feel for you, my friend, but only until Tuesday, right? Once Tuesday comes around, then they're done. Yeah, that's been a plague for you over there, but it's been, from the outside, it's been entertaining. For you, I'm sure it's been a living hell, but great comedy content for us, CJ. And then, as always, definitely head over to marketrebellion.com/try crypto. You can try the crypto trading room for just $1 for the first month. Hang out with CJ and I and thousands of other members from all around the world. We have a 24/7 chat where people are constantly trading their insights. We also publish trade insights with entries, exits, stop losses. We have an extensive education curriculum, pro charting service, and a whole lot more. So head over there and check that out. If you're not yet a member, you can try it for just $1 for your first month. But that's all we got for today. We'll be back on the cocktail hour tonight. But have a great weekend, everybody. We'll be watching the markets closely, and we will see you again on Monday. Take care.